What's going on, everybody? It's the Bull Show, aka Aiden, and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to be discussing another article. There are a lot of articles written now, or I guess are being written by people about the Chicago Bulls, discussing what our future could potentially look like. And there is an article, I guess, suggesting what the Chicago Bulls blueprint is in the offseason. Basically giving suggestions on what the Chicago Bulls need to do in terms of their offseason plans. And there are two things that they brought to my attention that I wanted to bring to your attention in this video. But before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Bulls Show, turn notifications on, and let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the Chicago Bulls and what blueprints do you think the Bulls need to do, or the blueprints that needs to be made in order for the Chicago Bulls to have a good off season and to be prepared for next season, where hopefully we're in the situation where we are in the playoffs and we are not talking from the outside looking in like we are right now. So of course, again, addressing the two things that the article has said and bringing it to your attention. I feel like a lot of people are very much well aware of this situation, but it's still important to talk about regardless. The first thing that they mentioned was addressing the point guard spot. Now, the Chicago Bulls, as we speak right now, has a lot of guards on the team. They've got Patrick Beverley, they still have Lonzo, who is injured, they've got Alex Caruso, they've got Ayo Dosunmu, they've got Kobe White, they've got a whole, if I haven't mentioned already, Patrick Beverley. They've got a lot of point guards, they've got a lot of guards on this team in general that allows us to play multi-guard systems, allows us to play multiple guards all at once. Some of them may not actually have the role of a guard, but they are listed as guards at the end of the day. But with all that being said, the true point guard for the Chicago Bulls is something that I don't necessarily know that we have. And that's where the article, I feel like, is spot on about addressing the point guard spot, because I genuinely feel like a lot of the guards that we have are just multi-guards. They're not necessarily a true point guard. They're not necessarily a true shooting guard. It's a little bit of both. I feel like all of our guards are like that. I could give you examples. Kobe White didn't necessarily list himself as a point guard in this team. He listed himself as just a guard, a multi-guard, someone that can play off the ball, someone that can play on the ball. He put himself in that category, which I think is spot on from Kobe White. I put Zach LaVine in that category as well. Someone that can play on the ball. Granted, he has a lot of turnovers, and he still does average a lot of turnovers, but he plays a lot on the ball, and he can play off the ball. He's one of the best catch and shoot players on our team, and one of the best catch and shoot players in the NBA. Patrick Beverley was a guy that came in and had a lot more ball handling responsibilities. A lot of his career, he wasn't necessarily an on-ball guard. He was a guy that can play off the ball as well. And Alex Caruso is the exact same. He plays a lot off the ball as well, and he suits that area. I feel like a lot of our guards are both on the ball and off the ball capable, which is, it's good. It's a good thing to have, but addressing that true point guard situation, someone that you can put the ball in their hands and allow them to dictate how the game is played and allow them to really create the tempo of the game and stuff of that nature, an elite point guard, I still think there are question marks there. And I think this Bulls team absolutely needs an elite point guard, because whether it's Kobe White that says he wants to start in that position, or anybody else, what's so important about having a point guard in this team is that it prevents us from being too stagnant. And that is a big problem for the Chicago Bulls. There are some games where we're running, we're moving, it looks great, the ball is moving, players are moving, and it's excellent. And it's a beautiful sight to see, but we don't necessarily have that guy that when things don't get out of that slump can build us out of that slump. For example, when there are bad games offensively, which we've seen a lot this season, where the ball is always in DeMar DeRozan's hand, or the ball is always in Zach LaVine's hand, and no one is moving for those guys, and those guys are not necessarily looking to find those passes either. So again, it becomes so stagnant, it becomes so predictable, and it just becomes annoying to watch. The best point guards in the league, look at all of them. Look at all the best point guards in the league, and I can very rarely say for those teams that they are stagnant or one-dimensional. And that's where I think the Chicago Bulls need to go. The article suggested potentially breaking up this team to go and get a Trae Young or Damian Lillard type player. And that's obviously very interesting to me, because Damian Lillard is one of my favorite players in the NBA. And I've never been shy of saying that. I absolutely love Damian Lillard. I love the hustle and loyalty he's brought to Portland. I love the return that Portland gave back to Damian Lillard in many ways, or at least the fan base did. And at the end of the day, Damian Lillard every single season will be in trade talks until eventually he does leave that Portland Trailblazers team. Whether it's Portland's decision or Damian Lillard's decision, I think eventually it will end up happening. And I think every single team, every single player, We'll talk about it. It's just going to be an ongoing theme until it actually happens. I don't see the Chicago Bulls going for Damian Lillard or Trae Young, and the big reason why is I don't know how we can do that. Is it possible? I'm sure it is possible. AK has made big moves with little to no, I guess, maneuvering whatsoever. He's done it before. So I'm not saying it's out of the realms of possibility that we can't go get a Damian Lillard or that we can't go get a Trae Young. I just don't know whether or not we can do that. But look, both players have been rumored to trades. Atlanta, I believe after their whole situation, there was conversations about everybody's up for trade for the Atlanta Hawks, including Trae Young. So again, not out there as a possibility that Trae Young could potentially leave the Atlanta Hawks at some stage. And Damian Lillard is not looking for another rebuild. And Portland are a team that at the moment are probably more likely to rebuild than they are compete. So it makes sense for Damian Lillard to leave as well. It makes sense for both of these guys to, I guess, get traded. I just don't know if the Chicago Bulls are willing to do that. And not to mention, for us to do that, we basically have to pull the plug on Lonzo Ball's career. And fans might want that to happen. I don't think the Bulls management wants that to happen. I think the Bulls management are persistent on waiting on this guy to hopefully come back into this team. But let's be real. I talked about it before, and again, I don't mean to just drag on in this one point. It's okay to have good quality players as your bench options. I still think it's okay, in my opinion, to go and get Damian Lillard, trade Damian Lillard, if that's trading DeMar and Vooch, or if that's finding some sort of financial package available to go and get Damian Lillard on the team and pair him up with Zach LaVine. If you can do that while keeping Lonzo Ball, I think that's okay, because Lonzo Ball, if he does come back into the league, it's probably more ideal that he does become a bench player in the long term, because it's clear that close to 3 years out of the league, he's not going to come in and play 40 minutes a night. He's not going to come in and play back-to-backs. He's not going to come in and just take over the Chicago Bulls team very quickly. It takes time to adapt to these big injuries and the process of having to overcome these things to just make a comeback in general. And if Lonzo Ball does have a good NBA career going forward, it can still be off of the bench and it can still be very impactful for us. So I think it makes sense to go and get a point guard, essentially is what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying we should go and get Damian Lillard or Trae Young. I would love Damian Lillard on this team. I've said it for years now. But I just don't find it a realistic avenue to break the team up to go and get Damian Lillard. I just don't think the Bulls are going to do that. But if they do, fair enough. We'll see how it goes. We could be in for a very, very big offseason of changes. And I think it's the changes that Bulls fans probably want at the end of the day. So let's see what happens. But we do need to address the point guard spot. I don't necessarily think we need a top 10 point guard in the NBA to come into this team. But we need a capable one. We need one that can be a very solid facilitator. A guy like Ricky Rubio, for example. Again, I'm not talking about financials here because I don't know how much money Rubio makes. A guy like Mike Conley, for an example, could be a good way to go down. Just someone that doesn't have many weaknesses to their game, but isn't necessarily the upper echelon superstars in this league either. I just think we need a strong, capable player on that team that can provide scoring in bunches, can provide assists in bunches, can play solid defense. Just be an overall capable point guard. If we can bring that to this team, Zach LaVine is going to be the guy that's going to be scoring most of our points. Vucevic is a top 10 offensive center in the NBA. If you keep DeMar DeRozan on this team, he can provide 24 points a night. I don't necessarily think we need someone to average 30 at the point guard spot. We just need a capable player that when things don't go our way, we give him the ball and he can help change the game for us. Sometimes we've seen that throughout the season, most of the time we have not. And that's the player that I think we need to find for this team. Let's wait and see if that ends up happening. The second thing that they mentioned was addressing the shooting. And again, very, very obvious answer here. I feel like this article could have went a little bit more in detail about, I guess, the big issues that we have. Because they didn't mention any of the size issues that we have. They didn't mention rim protection. They didn't mention adjustments in coaching. They didn't really mention any of these things. They mentioned the point guard spot and the shooting of this team. And those are two of the most obvious things, of course. Arturas Karnisovas mentioned the shooting of this team, how we can't keep going into these games with massive disadvantages from the three-point line. So I feel like the Bulls front office are already well aware of this. But being well aware of this and actually doing something about it is two different things. Because the Bulls front office were well aware of it last season as well, and they did not make the required changes needed in order for the Bulls to improve their three-point shooting. So again, I think in terms of that, they mentioned Buddy Hield as an option. Look, Buddy Hield is a player that I think can be maneuvered and can move around. I just don't know how, again, I don't know how the Chicago Bulls are going to be able to pay for that contract. I just don't know how it's going to be possible for us to do this season. I think there are other three-point shooters out there that we can go after. I still think a guy like Doug McDermott, who was a former Bulls player, is someone that we can heavily pursue in the off-season. Come off of our bench, shoot 40% from the three, or at least in that range, take about 4 attempts per game, and be that three-point shooter that we need. And we're going to need multiple of them as well. And I think there are cheaper options than Buddy Hield out there. But Buddy Hield is someone that I do see moving from the Indiana Pacers. I think Indiana, as good as they are, they're probably also another team that's looking more to get younger, and Buddy Hield's not getting any older in many ways as well. I do see them moving on from Buddy Hield at some point. I just don't think it's going to be for the Bulls, essentially. I just don't know how we're going to be able to get a contract like that into this team unless we don't re-sign any of our expiring contracts, which we know is probably not going to happen. And again, it's still a trade that you're going to have to do. So yeah, I don't think the Bulls are going to get Buddy Hield either. Maybe this is a negative video in the sense of I don't think we're going to get anybody, but I don't think we're going to make a big trade like that. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think we're going to go for smaller deals that can hopefully change the fit with the amount of small deals that we make. If we, for example, make 3 or 4 signings, they're not big players, you know, they're not the LeBron James of the world, they're not all-star level players, but they're role players. But their role is specifically, for example, three-point shooting. That, in my opinion, changes the fit of this team. That is where the fit will improve, and that's where those multiple small signings will build up to change the entire way this team plays. I don't necessarily think you just need to trade one for one guy and that guy revolutionizes how the team plays. It's possible. Again, a guy like Kevin Durant changes everything about the Phoenix Suns. Guys like adding Russell Westbrook into the team for the Clippers. It changed everything about the Clippers. It changes these things. But if you get multiple of these smaller signings in, like a Doug McDermott or a Naz Reid, these guys that are bench players and they're not necessarily the big key important parts of a team, but they help fit the team. It helps the team's fit, like what Milwaukee have with Giannis, but they have three-point shooters all around Giannis, including Brook Lopez as well, which is kind of what we have with Vucevic. It allows the fit of the team to change. So yes, three-point shooting needs to be addressed, but I don't think we need to go for the most expensive three-point shooter out there. We can go for other areas that are a little bit cheaper, which we have to be realistic. The Bulls are probably going to go for these cheaper options, but adding a lot of cheaper options might be able to change the fit of the team. We'll wait and see. Of course, not every single solution can be fixed this offseason, in my opinion, and that's because we are financially restricted in my eyes. I don't see a lot of maneuvering we can do unless we break this team up. So let's wait and see what ends up happening. It's a big offseason, and that's the things that the Bulls, I guess this article suggests the Bulls need to do in this off season. I'd like to know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think any of these things are realistic? Do you think it's realistic that we go and trade for Damian Lillard? Because I personally don't. As much as I would like it, I don't think it's realistic. But, well, let's be honest. When we traded for Nikola Vucevic, I think there was only one article that actually suggested that the Bulls would trade for Nikola Vucevic, and everybody else deemed it unlikely or unrealistic, and we actually pulled that trigger. I remember that time very fondly. No one expected the Bulls to go and get DeMar DeRozan in free agency, and we did it. It happened out of the blue in many ways. Thaddeus Young and a first-round pick for DeMar DeRozan. Again, it's not a trade that many people thought would ever go through, but it did. And it fit both teams, I guess, situations. So that made sense for the Bulls, and it was very unexpected. I think it was unexpected in many ways that we got Andre Drummond. I knew everybody was saying that we were going to get Mitchell Robinson or Jakob Poeltl trade or Isaiah Hartenstein, all these centers that were free agents. No one really had a blink of an eye on Andre Drummond. I think I only saw one person on Twitter that said Andre Drummond is still an option for the Chicago Bulls, and that's the guy that we went with. So, look, the Bulls have done things that are unpredictable, or have done things that no one expected them to do, in both good ways and bad ways. So if they go ahead and pull out a trade for Trae Young, well, of course, that's going to be surprising, unpredictable, and it might be what we need. But we'll have to wait and see. And of course, I will talk more specifically about players like a Damian Lillard and a Trae Young and any free agent that you want later on, once, of course, the entire season comes to an end. But for now, reacting to articles, looking at the end of the season, these things, I feel like it's important to discuss. as unrealistic or realistic as they may sound. So thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I enjoyed making it. This was actually a pretty fun one for me. But without further ado, have a wonderful and safe day, and I'll see you in the next Chicago Bulls video. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay tuned for more. Take care, and peace.